Yeah. I mean, the stretching would be the most valuable thing anyway.
Yeah, and the rolling out, like rolling my legs like
Oh,
constantly. And
okay.
also I have this thing. You've probably seen these before.
Oh, yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And,
Yeah, they're awesome, man. They're
yeah,
great.
so I used yeah, I used that on my shins.
Bugger me. I'm about to get on a call with Mr. Thomas Haake. Who would have thought? Got my coffee in tow. Thomas Haake.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Pretty good, man. I took your kind of thing there to heart and made a coffee for myself, so I'm should be good to go.
Oh, man, I'm running on about an hour's sleep. My youngest is teething at the moment, and last night was horrific.
Ooh, oh, you're one of them. You're one of them people that create offspring and such.
Yeah, man, and I've been doing it for a while. My oldest is 20, my daughter's 12, and my newest is 1.
Wow, that's a big spread, man.
Yeah, some would say too much of a spread.
You've been a horny person for a long time.
I have been, man. How are you going?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I just got back to Sweden like a week ago. I've been in the U.S. since we did some South American dates that ended like late October, and I stayed like all of November at the Missus place in New York. So I've been there
Cool.
and just got back and just kind of started to play a little bit again. And so I've had a couple of months off the kit. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's all good though.
Yeah.
All good.
And so do you take these long breaks? Like, I suppose, yeah, I was going to get to this a little bit later, but given the length of your career and how long you're playing with Meshuggah, I mean, there's obviously definitely the job aspect to it. And so you taking a couple of months off and I imagine enjoying your fishing and things like that is quite normal.
Yeah, I mean, basically at this point, or for the last, I would say probably 20 years, maybe or so. I basically I practice when we have something coming up with the band, and when we have tours and stuff coming up. I don't have that urge anymore, if you will, to just like get behind the kit.
Wow.
I used to have that for sure when I was in my teens and in my 20s, and over time, I guess I mean it depends on how you are as a person and stuff. I have access to the kit. I mean, I'm pretty much here at this spot that's kind of headquarters for us, and I'm pretty much here on a daily basis. Most periods I'm here for 7 days a week, and the kit is set up, and I have it's all mic'd and everything, and it's all dialed in, so it's I have nothing to blame for. I don't have to set up a kit, or do anything like that to play. But I still tend to not do it very often. It goes like it's kind of in waves too. Sometimes I'll have a period where I'll be more kind of into it, and then I'll go downstairs and just mess around on the kit for like anything from 20 minutes to an hour or two, depending on how good I'm feeling that day. But that very urge to like constantly play is not really there the way it used to be.
So two questions with that though. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you must have had that on an extreme level in your hungry years, though. I mean, to get the skills that you've acquired, that only comes from an insane amount of work.
Yeah, but I would say that work was not so much me by myself at any point early on, like the first few years with the band. It was always rehearsed, like everyone wanted to rehearse all the time, and I remember we would have rehearsals for 10, sometimes 14 hours straight without even eating. It just
Are you talking about Meshuggah or prior to that?
Yeah, for with Meshuggah. So like from 90 on, like the first 3 4 years especially, we rehearsed like insane people, and that's really kind of what helped me first of all secure a spot in the band, because when I joined the band, the previous drummer that they had, he was way ahead of me as far as like what they were doing, and they had already kind of started doing pretty crazy stuff back then. So it was definitely I had to kind of prove myself. So I think they really supported me with that, like just practice. We got to rehearse. We got to rehearse. We got to rehearse. That really helped me kind of step up. So over the first like couple of years, especially, I definitely changed a lot as a drummer, and like kind of my understanding for what we were doing.
Right. I've actually talked to Frederick a little bit about this, and I thought it'd be kind of good to bring that up with you because um, a little side story is that I've been communicating with Frederick through social media for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years now. And when he first touched base with me, I actually didn't believe it was him. It was one of those moments where I'm like, this must be a bullshit account. But he basically DM'd me and was talking to me about some single kick stuff because he's a fan of drumming, right? Like he's into drumming himself.
Oh yeah, he played. I don't know how much he's playing right now. I know for the over the last few years, he definitely cut down a lot because of just family situation and a lot of work with the studio that he built, and
Yeah.
and that he's running with Daniel Bertrand nowadays. So I don't think he has the time really to focus as much on that. But he did play a lot for a number of years, and he got really good really fast too.
Did
I
he?
mean, he started out as a drummer before he was a guitar player.
Ah,
He
yes.
that was his first instrument, and so he already had it all. Like he knew exactly how he wanted his own playing to sound. So,
And that must have helped with him translating ideas to you as well.
oh yeah, that has always been an aspect of his music writing, is that he was always very good at kind of mapping out what the drums not only should be doing but also what's possible. I
Mm,
mean, over the years, everyone in the band, since we all write and everyone kind of programs drums for when we write, uh, early years that was the drum programming could be a little bit all over the place if it wasn't Frederick or me that did it. So
right.
but over the years, everyone got really good at it, and of course they know I don't have 3 feet or 3 hands at this point, but he worked on it very much. Like he was the first of us that really kind of got in there, and like he wanted all the ghost notes. He was very kind of
Oh, wow.
particular about like, yeah, no, the ghost notes need to be like this. It wasn't just like it wasn't like that. It was very like tasteful and very to the point, and even down to fills and all that stuff. So
Oh, really? So he would even write fills with you as well?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you should have heard him back in the day. He used to play on um before we kind of started programming everything in Cubase, like straight into the program. He would use a Roland R5 drum machine, and he got so good at that. Just if you just like close your eyes and heard him play, it sounded like a jazz fusion guy playing, and it was just him hammering away on the machine. So he got really good at all that stuff, pretty early on.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a big help too, for me as a drummer, because it's not always, you know, you have to play it like this or this. That's not always like something you immediately hear or feel when you hear a riff.
Oh, for sure. Especially the riffs that he was throwing at you as well. I mean, I did talk to him briefly, asking him where his inspirations came from for, to put it in a nutshell, the over the bar line thing. Because at the time, especially in the late '80s, early '90s, that was very progressive.
Yeah,
And yeah, he privied me to the bands that he was into at the time and stuff. And that's when we got talking to about when you came into the band, because the one thing that he brought up that I found really interesting is that he said that you were a hands guy when you came to the band, not a feet guy. And I mean, I've always considered you a fusion drummer, and I use that term loosely, but fusion for me just basically means like loud or high dynamic jazz, meaning that you've got the facility of a jazz guy essentially, but you play like a rock guy. And and like if I look back at one performance in particular that really pointed that out for me, it was the drum and bass day that you did.
yeah. I mean,
Do you remember that one? And you got the three rack type, three up, two down, I think it is.
yeah. I mean, I did. quite a few of those things, and I think a few of them were actually called Drum and Bass Day too.
Okay, well, was it you? It was you and the bass player, and you did a medley. You did like a solo first that led into a Meshuggah medley, and you did maybe like 1 or 2 minutes of each track.
yeah,
But the solo that you did at the start was just, it was quite mind boggling for a metal drummer, the facility and the fusion that you had. And I mean, it goes back, it takes me back to you saying, because I've heard you say this in an interview before, that you never really practiced much on your own. And now you just kind of confirmed that, saying that it was really your time with the bands that really pulled your playing out. But I find that really hard to believe because you have more than average facility.
well,
There must have been some time when you were sitting there logging hours, man. Please do not tell me that there wasn't.
there was for sure, but I another thing that I never really did, I never played other people's music. I never really played along to anything at past I was like 16 years old.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I would play along to some Rush. It could be Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, stuff like that.
Acquiring licks and acquiring inspiration as you do.
Yeah, but the once joined the band, I since that point I've never really. I don't think I've learned one single song on drums since 1990 that is not Meshuggah.
That's amazing, man. That's a luxury.
Yeah, I mean, also it's kind of surprising to a lot of people. You have like a party or something, and your people are jamming, and it's like, let's play this Metallica song. I'm like, I love that song, and I've heard it a million times, but I never even tried to figure out exactly what was going. So I don't really know the song, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've been that kind of guy, you know. That I don't know. I always felt like what I could do with the band and the kind of inspiration that uh, gave me and what kind of drumming that drove me towards was enough for me to kind of feel satisfied with that. And I never really searched for, and I was never like one of those busy bees, like really like working for it like that outside of the band.
Wow.
With the band early years, of course, a lot of hours. And it's funny you mentioned that that I was more a hands guy than a feet guy, and that's true. Early on, I came from more. I mean, me and Morton, who has joined the band a few years later than me, we grew up together. So we kind of started playing together when we were like 12, 13 years old, and but it wasn't metal like immediately. It was more like kind of we were more inspired by like Rush and stuff like that. And
The fusions, I can hear that prog fusion thing in you. Were you into Pantera?
yeah, of course, Pantera, but that was later on for me. That was like the first few years with Meshuggah. Pantera was one of those bands that was still kind of always there, even during the whole grunge, when grunge took over everything and metal was kind of, at least where we were up in Umeå, it was it kind of died down. You didn't hear much. Of course, you had Metallica and
Mm.
you had very few bands, but it wasn't like it was almost like everything else just came to a standstill, and grunge was the only thing. But Pantera was one of those bands that we used to listen to a lot during those years. So they had an influence. I think maybe not so much on me as a drummer. I think more just on us as a whole
Yeah.
band, and like trying also to find that brutality in it, because it's one thing to write music and write something that's quirky or different, but one aspect that was always very important for us was to be able to make this music something that is brutal enough that we feel like, yes, it needs to still be that, you know.
Yes.
Where I think we felt that a lot of bands kind of maybe lacked that, or it became a little. It could be a lot of double bass and stuff, but whatever the riffing they would do would not be like jung, 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 jung. It wouldn't have that. It wouldn't have that kind of brutality
Mm.
to it. So that was also.
I mean, I would follow, if I was to put another comparison between you and Pantera, it's just the word groove, eh? Like Vinny's groove. I'm not saying that yours and Vinny's groove is the same, but a fundamental aspect of Pantera, which is also a fundamental aspect of Meshuggah, is that it fucking grooves, man.
Yeah,
And I mean, the ghosting plays to that too. Like whenever I see someone mucking around with your material, like doing a Thomas Haake thing, and they're not ghosting, I'm like, oh mate, there's not even a conversation at this point because the feel's lost.
yeah, that became pretty important and it was something that I kind of realized slowly over those years too, because even the ghost notes things and also like the playing along, the constant playing along on the kind of eighth notes on the high or quarter notes
Yeah, pulsing the hits. Yeah.
was something that kind of slowly came with me playing with the band, and I hadn't really done that so much previous. Also because I was more of a standard player before I joined the band. It was like you play the hi-hat, crossover.
I reckon it's your version of a standard player. Your version of a
Well,
standard player,
no,
I'm
it was
sure.
actually it was pretty standard in a lot of ways, I think. But
Well, can we talk about when you came into the band then? Like, if Frederick's saying that you were a hands guy, what was that adjustment like then, given the demand that clearly it needed? Like, if you look at Chaos Fair, for example, which was obviously just a little bit later, like there was a high demand on what your feet could do as well, very very quickly.
yeah, and I don't know. I to to a certain extent, I still don't consider myself a feet player, and that would sound maybe a little weird considering
That's the
songs
quote right there, eh?
like Bleed and stuff like that. But as far as like just playing fast quarter notes, I can't really do that. I'm not a relaxed enough player, so I play kind of too hard if I have to play stuff like that. Whereas a song like Bleed is almost you have little rests, constantly little itty bit
Yeah, 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 yeah.
rest in
It's
there,
not
which
like Power Max the whole time.
no, to like drummers that go 250 BPMs, like just hammered out for minutes. Like that was never my thing. I never had that. I never was able to kind of work up the stamina for that with my type of playing technique.
Did you play on the track War, or have you played that live?
No, no, never. And that was programmed.
Yeah, I thought it was programmed. I wasn't. I mean, I probably could have Googled that, but I did wonder if you'd played it live ever,
No, no,
because
no,
that's insane, man.
no.
That's when a guitarist programs the drums.
Yeah, no, actually, that has a funny story because it was actually a spoof song that we made for Frederick when he turned 30, and it had completely different lyrics that were Swedish lyrics and just basically heckling him as a human being. And
That's
then
great.
we just thought it turned out so kind of brutal that we then like added like real vocals, Jens's vocals in English to it, and just kind of released it, as such. Uh,
That is a brutal song.
yeah, but it was never meant something that we meant to ever play live. So uh,
Oh, well,
no, I
that's
could
good. That's
never.
reassuring.
That shit is like stupid fast at points. I
Stupid
could never
fast,
I
man.
could never play anything. I'm
I was
actually
actually I listened to it last night, and I was actually sitting there thinking, "Fuck, I don't know if I know of a drummer that could do it with the power." Maybe Chris Turner, who's that UK drummer. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's got pretty incredible feat with
yeah. There's
power
there's
as well.
probably some drummers that can play that nowadays for sure. But I mean, this is pretty.
Oh, actually, yeah, there are a couple of covers of it now that I mention it.
Yeah,
But the power though, like
yeah.
that's ridiculous.
I actually uh, there was a Finnish band. My brain is so slow these days. Rotten Sound.
Okay.
Um, um, and they actually played it live, and it was pretty much at tempo of the album. So that was kind of stupendous. They also played. I think they also played the entire track "I,"
Oh
which is another thing that
man,
we never did either because we kind of recorded that just like randomly part by part, and that was another thing that
let's talk about that, because I actually that song is super important to me in terms of the achievement of it. It clearly is a song that you guys went into the studio and wrote, and as far as I know, it was for a friend's label that you were helping him out with or something.
yeah, that's correct. He was singer for an American band, Mushroom Head, and
Oh right.
he was starting his own label, and we really just liked the guy, and he asked us if we were willing to do something, and we had to actually ask our label and all that, and get their kind of green light on doing something on a different label.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely something that we just did as a project for the heck of it.
How long did you
And
spend on
and
it in the studio?
I don't know, drumming wise, not long. I mean, I think maybe 2 3 days. I don't know. So we basically just started with what's the first part of the song, and we just like, what are we gonna do? Oh, I don't know. Should we start like this or do something? Well, let's just do cymbals and bass drums. Okay.
So you just tracked, like, say that intro thing with just the toms and the kick. You basically just went ham, and then Frederick came back and counted the numbers afterwards and played to you.
Yeah. So I would just play randomly. Each part of each segment of the song is, if we call that a style,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I would just play something in that style
Wow, so it
and at
started
that
off with
at
you.
the tempo. Yeah, and we would just do takes of maybe, like, the beginning part was probably a 15-minute take or something, just a constant fill for like 15 minutes, and then we just like took a part of that, like, this is cool. And
Right.
then so we did that kind of with the whole track, and then and Frederick had to kind of map it out afterwards, and we would record like short stints of guitars and kind of build it up
Yeah.
slowly like that. So
It has amazing flow considering it's been pieced together. It's one of my favorite tracks from you guys, and I love the reason why is because I can hear. I mean, the spontaneity just speaks for itself, and that's just so fresh. Every time I hear it, it sounds fresh because it's obviously emitting through the takes that you were just going for it off the cuff.
yeah, yeah, I think for us too, it's one of our proudest moments still.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. You'd never tried to learn it live?
no, I mean, we've it's been aired a few times. Like, should we try to? And everyone's like, no,
Why?
no, not to. I don't know.
It's a lot of
I,
work.
it's a lot of work for, I don't know. I was gonna say little payoff, but maybe
Oh
not. I
man,
mean,
a little
people would
payoff. Come on
obviously
now.
go nuts if we played that live, but I don't know, man.
I want to show you just through the mic here. I actually just want to pull up my favorite moment of it, and it's something that I still haven't really heard done drumming wise to the way that you did it. And it's sort of like for me one of the funkiest, grooviest double pedal moments that I've still ever heard to this day. And I just want to play a little bit of it if you don't mind,
All right, yeah, sure.
just so you can hear the part that I'm talking about, and we can just discuss it a little bit. Okay, so it's just coming up. I'll actually just edit this in with the box track so that people can hear it.
Yeah,
But when you hear that, man, when you hear that part there, A, is it a fond memory? And B, are you just like, fuck, that's a cool part?
yeah, I do love it. I love everything about that song, man. But yeah, again, just a part there is like, Frederick is in the control room and has a guitar, and I'm in the studio room, and we're just like, how about something like, if I do something like this, and he would go like, yeah, no, maybe not, like, oh, that, yeah, that style. Let's do something
Oh,
like that. Okay,
man.
okay, I'll just go something like this then. And he was like, yeah, just go, yeah, random, go, just go.
That is so cool.
And same thing there. Then we took parts and, whatever bits and pieces of whatever, how long that take was, just to make it kind of a, anything that's even 1632, etc. bars, and kind of went with it like that. So
Beautiful, man. Well, it's a great moment in music, and I still go back to that track all the time because it also covers a lot of the great sounds that you guys have as well. It's quite a diverse track. It offers a lot for the Meshuggah platter, you know.
yeah, it does. It kind of goes through all sorts of different things, and I think to a certain extent that that project in itself, uh, we were kind of all involved in that.
Okay.
Uh, and we had a really kind of good feeling after we had done that. And I think that's also what kind of led to us doing Catch 33 the way we did it. Even though I never played drums on it, that was all programmed, but the approach was very similar. Like, we would all sit around one computer and and kind of, it was transformative, I think, in a way for us as band members, because even though we've been together for a long time, at that point, uh, it's difficult when you sit next to each other and you have to like just be open and be like okay with if someone says no, I don't like that at all.
Mm,
No, that riff sucks, and oh, this is great, and this is awesome. Let's do something with this. Let me program the beginning of this and see where you want to go, and that's kind of how we did Catch 33 as well. So I think that would probably not have happened if we hadn't done I the year before.
right.
Uh,
You
so
had
so
that
that was
base of
kind of,
communication formed.
yeah, we felt like, this was pretty cool to do things like this where we're all kind of have a say in the same song, and so a lot of the stuff on Catch 33 is written pretty much by everyone in the band, and Jens, there's quite a few of Jens's riffs in there,
Oh,
uh,
cool.
and so it was.
There's some great moments on that album, man. For you, was it kind of weird that because obviously it was never intended to have real drums on it?
Yeah, that's something else that over the last few years, Frederick especially has been a little like, we should record that again, with real drums. So I'm like,
Interesting.
oh
Was that
man.
was that like an exploration in you guys getting into samples and things at that point, and really seeing how much feel you could create or real tone? Was that kind of the goal with Catch 33?
Uh, Not so much actually. I mean, first of all, the reason why we didn't like really kind of delve into it and focus and kind of had a 2 3 week drum session to do the album was also this was the last album off on the contract that we had with Nuclear Blast at the time,
Gotcha.
and it actually started. We were just going to send them kind of a sinus note that was like full length album length of just a note, and send that to them. Here's our final. Here's us finalizing the contract with you guys. Because
Right.
the terms that we had on that contract were so stupid that we just wanted out of it.
I've heard their terms were quite bad for a lot of bands.
Yeah, they were, especially we're talking the 90 or kind of this is. I mean, we signed the contract. It was actually the first contract that we signed in 1990 that we were still on in 2004 or five.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
which is bonkers. I mean, you
That
don't
is
even see
bonkers.
contracts like that anymore. We had like a 7 album contract. It's absolutely insane.
Holy
So,
shit.
yeah, so we wanted to get out of that, obviously, and but then we started kind of mucking about, and it's like maybe we should do something, and then it just kind of grew and grew and grew into this 47 something minute track that it
And oh,
is.
there's some
And
amazing moments on that album too. I mean, and Death is Death and Death is Life, like
yeah, that's some cool stuff for sure, absolutely.
moving moments, you know. So for something that you came into just kind of a little bit like, oh fuck, let's just get this done. Man, what an achievement.
Yeah, it was definitely, it started out like that and then turned into, and then that's why I say with the making of I kind of still fresh in our minds, we just kind of veered towards that, kind of project situation again. I think we just kind of wanted it. So,
That's really
and
cool.
I'm sure, in retrospect, Nuclear Blast are pretty happy that we didn't just send them a sinus note for the whole album length.
Oh, definitely. And we got the gift of a really good album too. And I remember at the time when it came out, the conversation in my band at the time was, oh man, Thomas didn't play on it. They programmed the drums and fuck, listen to how good they sound. And that was just an active conversation back in the, what was it, like early 2000s? I can't remember.
2005, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
I think it started late 2004, but it was released in 2005 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was definitely the dialogue on the outside that it was an achievement on all levels. And if okay, since we're kind of moving through the music a little bit, can I ask a question about Nothing?
Oh yeah, sure.
So why did you guys remaster it or remix it? Sorry,
Uh,
and how do you
I,
feel about the remix? Let me ask you those two questions.
personally, I don't really care so much. I mean, I get it. I think that the remix remaster one definitely does sound better. But I don't know. I kind of like that sound that the original had too.
Why did you remix it?
I don't know. Frederick was the most adamant to redo it. He didn't like how the snare came out. He didn't like how the
Oh my god, the snare. That's what I love about the original.
yeah, it's really thick kind of sounding snare, and I kind of like that too. It had that kind of that book like a darker kind of sound to it, and I'm pretty sure I had those Kevlar heads on the snare at the time.
Yeah,
Uh,
on a bronze, I imagine, bell bronze.
Yeah, yeah, I was using those Evans hybrid
Mm,
or whatever they call the gray Kevlar heads
yeah.
at the time. So that it's not maybe the most like musical sounding heads, and it does make all the ghost notes really kind of bassier sounding more than it's more like kirk, kirk, kirk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but to me, that kind of brought something to it too. I don't know. I didn't mind it so much, but there was a few different things that Frederick didn't like about it, and I mean, for us, it was okay if you want to spend time on it and see what you can do with it. Go right ahead. And
So did Frederick didn't mix it though, did he? Did he just want to use someone else?
the original was, I mean, he was definitely heavily
Yeah.
involved in the mixing of the first time around too, but that was more Daniel Bergstrand. And then the second time, it was more just Frederick.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, he just kind of took that upon himself and just wanted to fine tune the sound of it a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's something that we've kind of been doing that with almost every album that we and a few years after, there's a remaster and a remix sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh
But did he sample replace your snare and nothing? Is that how the snare is so
no,
different?
I don't think it was replaced. You'd actually have to ask him about that. I don't remember, it was
Oh
such a
wow,
long time
interesting.
ago.
I mean, it
I
sounds
can't
so
remember.
different to the first snare.
Yeah, no, you might be right. Maybe we did like sound replacement for the snare. I actually can't remember.
I mean, you wouldn't know it. But just the only reason I asked that is because it's such a contrast. But you wouldn't know it if it was just a standalone mix because it just sounds so perfect in it, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because once again, in our group at the time, the conversation was, "Oh, did you hear that they've released a remix of Nothing?" And it was, controversial. It was like, did it need to be remixed? I mean, this is the fans on the outside, sitting there judging all your decisions, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's not always maybe as a band, you don't always necessarily do what's the most necessary or what's needed to be done, but you tend to go more by just heart and
Exactly, and that's ultimately what you guys should always do, and it seems like you've always done as well. So,
yeah, yeah.
with your albums, like just because we're talking about all the different tracks and stuff, when you're playing live, can I ask just quickly, like, what is your favorite song to play live? Still, that you kind of get some joy, like a lot of joy when you kick into it.
There, I mean,
You can give me a couple if you want.
yeah, I mean, I still love Rational Gaze as a
Oh,
song. I
it's
think
a,
it's a very well written song, and
it's a pop song. It's your guy. It's an incredible song, man.
yeah, I think so, and that's why we tend to like. I don't think we skipped it at any point, like since it was written for nothing. We played it pretty much, I think, every show that we've done, and we will keep doing so.
That really makes me happy that you still get joy from playing that because that is probably one of my favorite up against I, like one of my favorite songs because it's just such a clear format with such an interesting, obviously the riff, but it's a perfect song in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it has some really neat qualities to it. The kind of where it the journey it goes throughout the song and stuff, and whereas it's while at the same time kind of keeping to the format that is initially there in the first few seconds. It's a lot of that like double bass with the two pedals instead of like doing it on the one pedal. So it's really like
Yeah.
kind of strong, kind of double hitting a lot of that.
Yeah, I like the way you follow the AB CB format as well. Like it just
Yeah,
really does the job well.
yeah, and I would say "Violent Sleep of Reason."
Nice.
That track is one of my favorite to play. I do enjoy 6/8 feel songs overall. Normally, that's like a format that I'm equally, at least, kind of accustomed to and have an ease of, if you will.
Interesting. Yeah. There's I think it's the opening track on Immutable.
Yeah, yeah. Armies of the Preposterous.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes. Yeah.
which is, I mean, that one is very different and definitely way more difficult to play because it's really like very slow hands, whereas while the feet are pretty busy. But I do love that track too. But as far as playing, we've never played that one live, so I wouldn't know about that. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
there's definitely a few songs that I do enjoy playing. For a number of years, I did love playing Stenga.
Oh yeah,
Was another one of those songs that was kind of a very particular song that has its unique style and unique type of playing and stuff like that. But there's also songs off the new album, God Is Sees and Mirrors, is fun to play.
cool.
It's very physical to play. It's more physical for me to play that than to play Bleed.
Yeah, I did want to talk about Blade, not so much in the nerd aspect of it, but kind of I mean, obviously the you've talked about it in the past that you spend as much time on that song as what you did on the rest of the album. First of all, I mean, there's a couple of times when I'm sure when Frederick was showing you the track, you were like, "Are we still going? Is it still going? Are we still doing it?" It almost could have ended at a couple of points, and I mean, it
Yeah.
pushes out to like a good 8 minutes, which given the demands on it technically must have been a little bit arduous surely.
Oh, it was for sure. It, and more than anything, I mean, yes, I had to kind of learn a different approach to play the kicks, um, to do that kind of fluttery style, if you want to call it that.
Hmm.
So it's definitely, I'm not using so much force playing that. So I have to have it triggered, otherwise it's uneven when I play it
Oh
because my
gotcha.
doubles on my right foot tend to be gung, gung, and
Yes, yes,
not gung,
yes.
gung.
So you've never played that song not triggered?
No,
Oh, okay, right. I thought you brought the triggers in more recently. Okay.
no, we kind of we brought the triggers in back then to be able to play that song. That was the main reason why we started using triggers actually, and then we realized, and our sound front of house guy realized that, what, this is way easier to deal with than your acoustic kick drums. So can we please just keep doing this? And we kind of stuck with it.
I think it actually really works for the band anyway. Like I've seen you guys a few times now, and just that dynamic consistency for the kicks being what the kicks are underneath the music. It's sort of imperative, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I wouldn't see it as a loss that being requested. That's for sure.
No, no. I mean, it had to be like that. But yeah, I spent a lot of time first listening to the track. First of all, I remember walking a lot back then, and I would have my, music on and the headphones, and I would just listen to it, listen to it, listen to it, listen to it, listen to it. So before I even started approaching it on the drums,
Mm.
I knew the format by heart or by mind, if you will.
Oh wow.
Um, so that's kind of where I started. But then I of course I realized this pretty quickly that, okay, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time on on this before this starts sounding good, and also for me to be able to play the whole thing 7.5 minutes, and so slowly but surely I kind of learned to relax my feet more,
Gotcha.
because initially it was just like I would just kind of try to play too hard, and it was, I would just cramp up in a matter of 20-30 seconds. My
Yeah.
left, shin would be burning.
It's the left side, that makes that song the hardest. It's quite interesting. It's not the double on the right, but it's that constant left.
Yeah, I think for most right-footed drummers, we can go quite a lot with doing doubles on the
Yeah,
on the on
all
the right
day.
without really being a thing for the shin. Unless, I mean, I've felt that too. If I stayed away from the kit for a long time, then I'll have problems with the right foot as well.
Yeah.
But that's just a matter of kind of getting into it. But it's always the left, even though the left is just doing singles. Uh, I don't know if it's something I tense up or something that kind of makes that happen. But
It messes with my head because we pulsar hits. I mean, you're a heavy pulsar on your left too, so it's kind of interesting how they're similar things, obviously, but still the demand is so much higher, eh?
yeah, and even though, like you said, I play the hi-hat a lot, and some songs, especially, I don't know, for some reason I started switching to playing quarter notes instead of eighth notes on the hi-hat. It just happened all of a sudden. I don't even know why,
Oh wow.
unless I really like force myself to, like, I have to play eighth notes because the song is supposed to have this. If you take a song like Clockworks,
Gotcha.
you want that.
Yes.
That's part of the drumming and how
Yeah,
it
don't
sounds.
don't cut back to quarters for that song.
Yeah, but for a lot of tracks, I just started playing quarter notes. So all of a sudden,
I wonder if that's a sign of you powering down, man.
I digress here. And but yeah,
No, but that stuff's really interesting as well.
yeah. I just mean, as far as like, you would think that my left shin or left foot would be very used to just playing those singles because it's really no different from playing the hi-hat, but you do have a resistance, and a pedal works in a different way. You exert more energy trying to break it and then
Totally,
turn it around. So it's, of course, it's different
totally.
than a hi-hat pedal.
And there's it travels, the foot travels further too. I notice is the in terms of the feeling, it's
Yeah,
that's one of the big things too.
yeah.
With that song, do you because obviously from my opinion that song is what kind of broke you into the more music mainstream for the almost the circus act of it from a drumming perspective. Obviously you must have noticed that like the reach went a little bit wider.
Oh, yeah.
And when you play it now, first of all, physically, are you still pretty okay with it? Like, no worries. Like, and I don't even know if that's worthy of a conversation or not. But I'm curious as to the physical demands of some of the stuff, and playing it for as long as you have, and where you're at now, and all those things are really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's not so much, I wouldn't say necessarily so much the physical, like as far as the stamina needed to play it. It's not so much that. It's more my right foot that I don't have like a complete control of anymore after um, back um, surgery and stuff. So
Right.
uh, I kind of have problems with that sometimes. So it takes also a very particular pedal setting for me to be able to pace the double hits. That's part of this conundrum that's going on with the body, and it certainly doesn't get easier as you get older. But I probably tried out pretty much every pedal that you can find on the market to help me find something that would kind of mitigate a little bit what the problems that I used to see with it, and sometimes still it's like the right foot, the double hits are a little too quick,
Oh, interesting.
and it doesn't really matter what I try to do. It's just like that's today. It's gonna be like this, So
We're going to do
uh,
the song 10 BPM faster.
yeah, so I have to have kind of a sluggish pedal too. I can't play like really pedals that are set to play really fast, like lightweight pedals. I have quite a lot of a weight, and I have a DW beaters that are really kind of far up.
Oh, I do. Yeah, and they're very heavy too.
Yeah, and I noticed also with really short board pedals makes it very difficult for me to pace it. So I use like Tomas now, like the Speed Cobra length. It's the Dynasync,
Yeah.
but with the Speed Cobra bracket and chain.
And you
Uh,
like that?
yeah, that's so far. That's kind of the thing that's the closest, and it's weird for us because we do play some stuff that is really fast, but then we have very heavy songs and very kind of slow songs too. So
I know you're catering to a lot with one pedal.
that's the only kind of thing about Bleed is that determines my pedal setting completely. If we're going to play that live,
Yeah, wow.
it's going to have to work for that, and then it might not feel great for some songs, but I just have to deal with it kind of.
Two questions from that. One, just speaking of pedals, you played the FP9s for a while. I saw the Yamaha FP9s. Did that not work for you ultimately?
Yeah, I do love them. I think they're some of the best built pedals on the market, and
They are.
I do like them a lot. But I I did play with them. I toured with them for a little bit for like a year, and but I had a lot of problems with bleed,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
they're still a little too short, even though the new version with the blue stuff on there with the I don't know if it's the same FP9, right?
Yeah, yeah, FP9, yeah.
It used to be FP950, I think the old ones were. Uh, and they were really short.
Yes.
I think I saw you play at a hi-hat at least.
Oh, yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, you're talking about the 9500s. Yeah, yeah, which was their top of the line. Yeah, they're very short boards.
Yeah, I used to love those back in the day, but
Yeah, they're cool. They're really cool, simple pedals, eh? Like
yeah,
just they do the job.
they're like no frills.
Nah.
They're built perfect, and they will outlast you as a drummer.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very sturdy pedals.
Yeah.
But I started noticing that the shorter the board, the action that you get is very different from
Mm,
from once you start making the board longer. You have like a more of a you slow the pedal down basically.
yeah.
Whereas if you would have a really short board, it would be extremely quick, right?
For sure, for sure.
So 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 I just tended to go more towards longer pedals. And once I started using the Tama um, speed cobras I was using for a while, and then I I put I put these rubber things that I use double sided tape that I put on the pedals, and this is also part of
Oh,
it. It
okay.
comes back to this back and nerve issue that I have, that I wanted to have a secure grip, and I used to play without shoes. Now I'm back to playing with shoes, but I don't like it when the foot slides on the pedal.
Ah, interesting.
Uh, that is a problem. Yeah,
Can I ask if like all your pedal stuff at the moment is in relation to your back surgery? Is that the quest
yeah,
is kind of all related to that? Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I mean, but before that, I could play pretty much any pedal. Yeah, I wasn't really sensitive to that so much, but after that injury, I definitely had problems, and so you start
For
searching
sure.
for what's gonna like help you get away with it, so to speak.
I did want to ask you about the pedals, so it's great that we finally got there because, I mean, I'm always playing. I love gear, so I love pedals, and my dad's an engineer, so I sort of got brought up in the shed, and I think that just kind of just gave me this inquisitive nature. I really like seeing the way things are built, and the FP9s are a great example of good ingenuity. The Eliminator, which I know you played the Eliminators for a while as well, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Also very good
Great
pedal.
pedals as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, similar to the 9500, just kind of simple in their format. Even though they've got the interchangeable cams, they're still just quite a simple pedal by design.
yeah.
And so with where you're at now, did you ever consider using like a, this is going to sound quite interesting, but a bass drum with a different pedal setup for bleed specifically? Did you ever toy with doing a bigger setup where you could move the feet over or something? Given the contrast between the demands for bleed and then the rest of the heavier stuff?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I thought about it, but it was like, that's that's too much like hassle, and I don't want to
It's a
have
lot
to
of
deal
work.
with that. Yeah, I don't want to have to deal with that really. So I've just been trying to kind of get something that would work for regardless of song, basically. The kind of rubber thing that I put on the pedals to not have that sliding effect, and sometimes if you have a shoe on, a regular, even a completely flat surface board, you will have a good grip. But then you occasionally you play a festival where it's dusty and sandy or something in the air, and they
Oh,
get
bro.
really, really slippery.
I
And
know.
and yeah, and that messes with me too, because one of the things that happens with my foot is it kind of tends to travel up on the pedal, and
Hmm.
the slippier, if you will, the board is, the more it's gonna like be too far up and almost hitting into the chain, and then of course you completely change the dynamic of how much you have to move your foot down for it to actually hit the head. That's
Yeah.
the further up you
Yeah.
go, you're gonna have to move your foot a lot.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, you're dealing with like literally the complete opposite problem that I have because we actually I've spoken to Jimmy a little bit about your pedals. So Jimmy, your drum tech, he
Hmm.
and I, similar to when Frederick sort of popped up, Jimmy did as well, and he's always been gracious with talking and chatting about things and whatnot. And we set our pedals up similar, but I never want the grip because with my technique doing the multiple strokes and stuff, grip is sort of my enemy, you know.
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
it comes to me wanting to work on extreme double pedal stuff, this is where I've now faced this problem where I need that grip. I need my toes to feel like they're grabbing the pedal, and I'm just sort of like jumping from pedal to pedal, thinking that that's going to solve the issue that's bigger than that. Well, not bigger. I mean, shit, we're talking about nerd stuff here, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah.
trying to find a balance between being able to do my single kick stuff and then finding that I have a real good feel of double pedal work as well, which I'm still trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I think I was more like that when, if we go back a number of years before the injury. I definitely I like the smooth pedal better than something that like a DW that has all the knurls and whatever on them.
Mm,
Because I kind of also wanted especially my right foot, to be able to kind of slide up and
yes.
down, and and turn sideways and whatever. Uh, but since that, since the injury, then I've definitely kind of opted for that grip. It feels like I have a little bit more control, and my foot is really kind of stuck to it.
And so, how's your physicality right now, like in terms of doing a Meshuggah set? How are you feeling at this point in your career, essentially? Like,
No,
how do you
I
feel?
feel good, man. Actually, yeah. I think to a certain degree, I toned myself down a little bit as far as like how heavy I play. I definitely play more relaxed now than I did 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
I don't play as hard. You realize at one point, and I used to have shoulder impingement really bad back in like 2006, 2005, 2006, around there. And I had to kind of really start working on that with I had some people help me with that where you use it's almost
Cortisone.
no, it's like a almost like an air pneumatic hammer that kind of it
Oh,
just hammers your cartilage and your shoulders and to kind of open it up a little more, and you start an inflammation in your own body, and you can't do any anti-inflammatories or anything. It's supposed to, your own body has to kind of take care of it,
gotcha.
and that together with certain exercises for the rotator cuff and stuff, I did that for probably a couple of years before it's slowly, it slowly kind of dissipated. So I had that too. So that made me not only go from the 3 racks and 2 floors to the 1 rack.
Oh, is that why you did that?
Yeah, that was kind of more for ergonomic reasons than anything else. And also the cymbals, I used to have cymbals really kind of far out, and that would be obviously detrimental to the shoulder.
Hmm.
So I kind of just did this where you kind of just hold your arms out, and you start, as soon as you start feeling any kind of tension and just putting your arms out to the side, I would be like, okay, no further than that, no cymbals like beyond that point.
Yeah,
And that helped. And taking the 3 racks off and putting the 1 rack in the middle meant I could have the hi-hat way lower to the side of the rack tom, which, so instead of playing the hi-hat up here, I could really relax and just play it kind of
gotcha.
with a relaxed arms. All those changes made a huge difference over time.
Did that make it hard when you tracked the new album? Because I noticed you kind of went back to the 3 up for that.
Yeah, but what I did was, and that's kind of the setup we were using initially. Now on the first few tours for Immutable too, I was using 3 racks again, but now with just a 20-inch kick and not deep toms, like
Oh,
really
you're using a
shallow.
20. I suppose because you're triggering, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so it wasn't really so high up as it used to be, because I used to have 22s and then square toms on top of that, so everything was kind of up. And once I put the 20s now, and I have 24s wide open in front of them, and also for it to not look
Oh,
absolutely stupid when
so
you
that's
play
why
a
you put the
huge
24s in front of
rotation.
them.
It's actually more for looks than it is for any kind of
Okay,
like.
well, answer me this then: if you weren't triggering, would the 20s be sufficient for your bass drum sound?
I don't know, man.
I mean, can I
That's
answer that
hard to
for
say.
you? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I haven't really played 20s without anything. I do love the feel of 20s.
Yeah, they do feel nice.
Uh,
They're very
and
responsive.
anything basically, the smaller the bass drum, the kind of snappier it feels like it's a little, it definitely a difference. Not so much from 20 to 22, but from 20 to 24, because I played for years here downstairs and rehearsing, not necessarily bringing the 24s on tour, but I would play them at rehearsal, and they 24 by 18. So that's a there's definitely a difference in how they feel
For
to
sure. That's
play.
a
They
lot of air to
definitely feel
move
like you
around,
got to
eh?
work them a little more. Yeah,
Mm.
and basically I have stupid technique. I don't have a bounce off technique, so I really kind of plant the pedal
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
if
I'm
there's
the
time
same.
for it, and not if I'm playing double bass, whatever. But I just plant it in there until kind of before the next hit. So I need the kick to be muffled and kind of dead, so you
Yes.
don't get that like fluttering of the pedal. So
So you have your heads quite loose, I imagine.
yeah, and this is kind of a solution to that. So I have the 20 very kind of muffled, and then the open 24 with just ambassador heads. Definitely acoustically, uh, here in the rehearsal space, they sound great because
Mm.
you have those 24s in front of them, but you take them off, it's like dick, dick, dick. The 20s are just muffled to be just kind of dead
Yeah,
for the
for the
feel, and
feel.
also for when you use triggers, it's definitely easier to deal with the triggers if you don't have a floppy head that's kind of going all over the place.
Yeah, that's interesting with the 24s. I mean, I didn't even think to ask you that, but I did notice that. I mean, it looks fucking cool. I thought they were like the
Yeah.
ultimate version of a kick sub.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're big pick subs. They're 14-inch deep. So normally, if you see a sub, they're normally like whatever, like maybe six,
Yeah,
eight
tiny.
inches deep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
man,
But
he's
Sonar
going all
don't make
out.
it. Yeah. Sonar don't make them. They don't make the subs, so I just had to order like full on bass drums. But at 14, so it's 20 by 14 and 24 by 14.
Yeah,
But
cool,
when we
man.
recorded the last album, if you've seen any footage from there, I
Yeah,
had a
definitely.
22 by 18 and 24 by 18 in front of those.
Right. So they were being used as subs on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh
they
man,
sounded
yeah.
absolutely like cannons in that studio. So it was pretty cool. Acoustically, it was really cool, you know.
Beautiful. Cool, man. Well, I just want to shift gears a little bit. I just want to get your commentary on something. So, Meshuggah for me sits in the vein of like bands like Maiden and Metallica in the sense that you've got such a defined and unique sound that people will say, "Oh, that's a Meshuggah thing." Like we can reference something that sounds like a Maiden thing, or we can reference something that sounds like a Pantera thing, because the bands have formed such an original sound that you can use it as a reference. When with the impact that you guys have had on the metal scene, which is obvious, because it created this whole subgenre. How do you feel about that? Having a sound that's so defined that became like a genre within itself.
I mean, first of all, I think that's something that most bands strive towards.
Yeah,
Um, and I think, in a sense, it's also harder and harder to do because music and metal, if you take metal as a genre, when we grew up, it was this,
mm,
and then it became this, and now it's just, you know, 360. There's so many bands that have done pretty much everything before you. So to be a, a teen or a early 20s band now and try to just do your own thing, trying to come up with something that's genuinely and truly
original.
like something that just sounds original and that's only you do it is exponentially harder as time goes. Uh, and I think for us, that's also one of the things that we were also lucky. I mean, yes, we worked hard, we worked our asses off over many years, or at this point, several decades to kind of perfect and do whatever it is that we do. But I completely lost the thread of thought here. This is what I do, by the way. This is very typical. I just digress on something and then
Oh,
I
just
forget what
just with
the rest about.
with creating a genre essentially with the gent thing.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. Uh, and I think it's humbling in a sense too, and it's just a testament, that you did something that meant something to a lot of people and to a lot of musicians that someone is trying to not necessarily copy, but they're trying to take your music as a basis and then try to figure out their own way of doing that and
Definitely.
that's really cool. But it's also, I would say, the music, most of the bands that I hear that are considered to be the gent style or in that genre, I don't really see us or those bands necessarily having that much to do with our music as far as like the uh, the output and the way that it actually comes out at the end of the day.
No,
Uh, I think, and maybe that's a good thing. It's just I think it's really difficult to make something like that and without getting shit for it is another thing. Because I mean, if we in '92, if we decided we want to sound like Pantera and started doing things, we would immediately get shit for it too. So
sure.
it's also very hard to try to kind of follow in a band's footstep unless you're playing something that is meant to be generic. So if it's meant to sound like AC/DC, okay, there can be another band that sounds like AC/DC for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's so
There's
right.
there's one or two great AC/DC sounding bands from Australia. I know
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah,
from
yeah,
New
yeah, hundred
Zealand, but
percent.
so it depends on the music too. But I think also the more particular the music becomes, the harder it is to kind of try to step in there and do your own thing without people, heckling you for it. So that
Definitely.
was not something that we ever had to deal with. We were pretty early on, started out uh, already like late '80s and early '90s to do something that I think already at the time was definitely something that kind of veer off to the side compared to most the metal that was around, at that time.
Well,
So
you just made the comment before that it's pretty hard to be original, but without a doubt, what you guys were doing, no one else was doing. I mean, unless you can tell me about a band in your area that the wider audience wouldn't have known about, you guys were incredibly original.
yeah, I think, I mean, another thing, I mean, you touched on it earlier, the hands versus feet, and kind of the fusion style that, especially on the first full length album,
Mm,
that you hear quite a lot of that.
mm,
And then there was definitely more handwork, uh, and over time it kind of changed to more groovy stuff,
yeah.
hands, and maybe a
Oh,
more involved
hang on, hang
footwork.
on. It always grooved, man. It always grooved. No matter how you were doing it, it's always grooved.
Yeah, and I think for sure, one thing that definitely had a huge impact on several of us in the band was the kind. When I joined the band, I noticed day one that Frederick, especially, but also Jens, and to a certain degree, the old bass player Peter, were listening to fusion, and like Alan Holdsworth and stuff like
Mm.
that. And I for sure started listening to. So I had a few years there where I listened to a lot of that stuff, with all the greats, Vinny Colaiuta and Dave Weckl and all
That's
those.
the part of your playing that's very unique to you, man. Is that Vinny thing? I can hear it. It's like, and this is totally just credit to you. You and Meshuggah reminds me of like Mitch Mitchell with Jimi Hendrix, or even someone more recent like Chris Penny and Dillinger Escape Plan, where you've got someone that isn't 100% from that genre that comes into it and
Yeah,
brings something that, had they just got like a really good metal drummer, it would have been a whole different thing.
yeah. I mean, for sure, this is something that I mean, also to a certain degree, deliberately, and Frederick's solos and his like approach, especially
Oh
to the
man.
first few albums, where he would basically copied Alan Holdsworth's tone and all that, where he had like the exact same pedals, the exact same rack things, like just to get his leads to sound just like that. And most people in metal never heard of Alan Holdsworth and never would, and if they heard it, they'd be like, ah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
gross.
yeah.
So I think that was one thing that brought a uniqueness to it, and it invited more uh, of fusion into the music, and it felt like, yeah. So the drums can also be a little more, have one foot in that a little bit.
Yeah,
Even though
man.
I never actively played fusion or jazz or anything, I couldn't do it to save, to to fucking save the, what do you call it? Save
Yourself.
myself to, yeah. I couldn't do that's not. There's been many rumors over the years that, yeah, we with this and this, and early on it was even we were professors and not only mathematics but in music theory, and it was all sorts of weird rumors, and
Astrophysics.
yeah, I was a jazz drummer that went over to the dark side of the force and stuff
Oh,
like that. And
so funny.
but yeah, I think I even, like that, as far as like the drummers that I would listen to, that I mentioned, they obviously had different ways of playing fills than you would hear normally in the metal,
Yeah.
um, in metal. So that definitely had a direct impact on me, and I loved just the how it flowed and all that. And you
Mm,
try, uh, as much as I could, to kind of incorporate that, and that was something that Frederick kind of wanted in there too, I think. And but then over time, I think the first album, you still hear a lot of the old school references. You hear the inspirations from
hmm.
and influences from Bay Area thrash metal bands and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and and as we kind of went along, and with each album, I think we just kind of washed those things out and just kind of became more and more like, okay, this is more.
More
We're
you.
gonna take this a little lateral from that, and kind of try to really create our own thing. And with that also came a different mindset to riffing and stuff, and really over the bar line stuff, where it started getting really involved. And we never liked, in ourselves, or when we hear other bands where you have a lot of start and stop, and you have like the real obvious like odd meters, where it's like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
dun,
like
dun,
Rush.
dun, dun. Yeah, because we wanted to. Once you start headbanging, you just keep that headbanging like that, and it's going to be correct for the rest of the song,
Yes.
whether you think it is or not. It's that's kind of something that we wanted because I think we all realized that it was an important aspect of having groove
Mm,
and having something that's like okay, that has this, that kind of feel to it, that it's like it just goes on, it just keeps like going,
mm,
and so we were never really fans of that kind of the rush
mm.
of it all, even though I'm a huge Rush fan. But for us, for the music that we played, it just made sense to more and more kind of take this path where you're just making longer and longer riffs that you just kind of go over the bar line until you hit the 16 or 32 or 64, whatever amount of bars. um, and with that, I think came also that you stop being so busy with the hands, and that was more to set the groove, and then
Right.
the you kind of switch from more handwork to more feet work, and have the feet kind of follow the riff, and the hands were kind of more going straight, even though, as you know, it's not always like that. Sometimes the snare is on a certain note in a riff and stuff, but
Oh, definitely, yeah. But you're right.
for the
Like,
rest,
and it seems like, and even just the way you guys approach the songwriting, it all sort of pulled back a little bit to just sit in this nice friggin' pocket. They're not all the same tempo. I don't mean that, but just
yeah.
you guys really found your sound, you know?
Yeah, and I think if you look, especially on the Immutable, almost every song on that, if not every song, is backbeat.
Yeah.
It's like because if you take an album like Nothing, for example, there's a lot of snares hits that are thrown. They're a part of the where it's just like the right hand that's being straight, and then the snare is like also part of the pattern with the kick drums. But over time, I think we with Why Not Sleep of Reason to a certain extent, but definitely on Immutable, um, it's almost none of that. It's almost like it's all backbeat pretty much. Uh,
Yeah. So does that mean that is Frederick still heavily involved in the songwriting, like on Immutable?
no, not on Immutable, and not so much on Violent Sleep of Reason either.
Okay.
He he kind of started. I mean, he started working a lot on playing drums back in post Coloss album. So around like 12, 13, I think he really got like heavily, and he's just like poof, like this. Because I know he wanted to, and still I think that's the intent, that he wanted to write a new solo album, and he wanted to play the drums himself.
Mm.
And so that's what he had, really had a very specific goal that he was working towards. So it meant that the rest of us kind of picked up more of the songwriting on the last couple albums.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
so yeah. So that, I mean, that's going to change the vibe and the style if you take one member out that's been one of the main songwriters for many years. You take that out, you're gonna, of course, it's gonna be heavily more this style and this style, and I think we all have a tendency to go towards certain styles. So me and Dick worked a lot together for on writing for Violent Sleep of Reason. Then we did the same thing now for Immutable. So you have those kind of songs, and then you have the tracks that are purely Morton's tracks, and those are more in their own vein. And I think it's just, at the end of the day, it's just a good mix to not have everything be so much written by one person. But of course, you
Yeah.
take Frederick
No, it
out,
is.
it's going to be a little less mixed, maybe,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Frederick
Yeah.
has his particular style of kind of writing. So
Mm. Oh man, I mean, going back to his solos, his tone and his note choices and his solos, I love them, man. Like to me, it just sounds like a collection of wasps on a mission. You know, I've
yeah,
always
and
just
I
loved.
think also that that aspect in his style of leads is another very important thing that set
Absolutely.
us aside, and made this music sound a little special, and very kind
But even Jen's
of fun.
bro as well. Like Jen's vocals. Like
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, I'm not a metal guy, bro, but I could listen to him all day.
yeah,
Seriously.
yeah,
I don't. To be honest, vocals are usually the cut off for me with a lot of metal music, just because it's such an it covers so much of the music, and it's usually the hardest buy-in.
yeah,
But man, I could listen to him all day. Eh?
yeah. that's kind of funny, and we I think we decided pretty early on. I mean, if you even on the first album, there was still a little bit of like choosing notes, and you're like kind of going a little bit like this, even though it wasn't any vocal melodies as such, but you would have certain, you're trying to hit certain pitches and stuff like that. And but I think the early '90s also was kind of a cool time up in Newman because I had all the hardcore bands were, Refused and
Oh man.
Abananda, and all those bands were huge, and we were basically competing with them for the local scene. And a lot of the
Oh
shows back
really?
then would be a mix. It would be hardcore and metal because it wasn't
I mean,
really.
Refused are fantastic.
Yeah, they're absolutely great, and to a certain degree, I think we took as much as we dared take from kind of the hardcore aspect of things, and
Wow. Yes.
I think that I think it was mutually beneficial because it was really, I mean, um, we were always friendly and always good friends with them and stuff, but there was always this like the hardcore versus metal, and like I said, the city wasn't big enough to have shows that was just either one. I mean, it became
Mm.
later on, but early '90s, it was like it was always going to be mixed. You were going to have Refused, or you were going to have us, metal and hardcore at the same time, and
Yeah.
I think it really kind of rubbed off to a certain degree, and the vocals. Uh, Once Jens started only singing because he was playing guitar, early on in 90, 91, 92, he was playing guitar as well as singing. And
Oh really?
as the music evolved, it just got to be too much for him to kind of play and sing.
To
So
do both. Yeah.
yeah, so he opted for the latter, and we brought in Morten at that point. And
Good move. I mean, the vocal style, I know you write the lyrics, but just hitting those syllable placements is a whole thing within itself, like getting that bang on.
yeah, so yeah, that's exactly. So our approach since then has been more like yet another, the vocals is yet another percussive instrument, just like the
Absolutely.
guitar and bass.
It's just as important, man. Like I
Yeah,
am waiting for those vocal stabs as much as I'm waiting for your snare.
yeah, exactly. And I think that became a thing for us pretty early on, and we never after that we never even looked back as far as like should we do like kind of hard rock metal singing. First of all, you have to be a certain type of singer for that. If you take Phil Anselmo for example, so yeah, he had a great metal voice, but he also could sing, right? He had a great singing voice as well.
Oh, yeah, he had a
But
fantastic voice.
but it tends to also shape the music very much. You take a lot of focus out of what's going on in the music and you put it into a vocal melody, and that for us was it was just it would just clash
Yeah.
because we didn't want that to be a disturbing factor,
No.
and I don't think that Jens either wanted to even approach it like that. So
Well, you said it
to
before. It's a
that
percussion
extent,
element in the band. That's what it is.
yeah, it really is, and that's where it becomes also very involved, like the very syllable by syllable. Like so, a lot of times you might have a lyric that's pre-written, but you basically have to change everything and try to keep the meaning and the
Gotcha, gotcha,
spirit of
gotcha.
the
Just to
lyric
make it work.
intact, but just to make it work for a certain track. And that's another aspect that people maybe don't think of so much. And
Well, I did want to ask you that because I know you do write the lyrics or you have done. I'm not sure if you currently are, but yeah, like writing the lyrics and then making it work within the context of the song. I did want to know about the syllable placement.
yeah, I still write most of the lyrics, even though Morten wrote a few for. He has always written at least a couple tracks for each album
Oh, cool.
that are his tracks, and he will sometimes uh, ask me if I could write a lyric for it, or if and sometimes he's like he has his own lyrics for it, uh, and yeah, that's a very important aspect of it.
And so, can I ask for your process then? Are you writing, like, I mean, do you have your journal or your diary and you're just constantly writing stuff? Or when the song's written, you sit down, you write the lyrics, and then you bring the lyrics to the song and try and figure out with this if it works?
Yeah, it used to be more like pre-written lyrics that then I would then change to fit the music.
Gotcha.
Uh, and you, of course, you have to kind of first you have to the song has to be kind of done, so you get
Mm.
a very good sense of what this song is, what kind of vibe does this song have, what
Oh yeah.
because the lyrics are going to have to tie in with that in a way that makes sense, that kind of doesn't ruin the song, but it instead brings it even up and makes it more interesting once you put the lyrics on there. So that's how we used to do it more. But for the last album, it was more like I would wait until we really knew what the vibe was, and then we would kind of discuss it, me and Dick, and like, what's your vibe with this? What are you seeing? Like, what are your visuals like for this song? And
Mm.
and that would kind of determine more the kind of approach I would take to what the subject matter would be,
What the
or
story is.
yeah. So it's become a little more and more like that I write it after the fact, but
No, that's
still
interesting.
equally crucial. I think
Oh, absolutely.
it has to tie in with the music, and it has to kind of promote the music.
So then, can I ask, are you choosing that syllable placement, or is that a band decision as well?
No, that's usually me.
Well, that's some great taste, man.
Yeah, and or Dick, for songs that we worked on together. Sometimes he will have a strong opinion, like, no, I want I want it to come
Ah,
there
yeah,
instead of the first. It's like, okay,
cool.
so we will definitely talk about things like that too, and it's never really a bad thing. If Morton writes a song and he puts his lyric to it, there's usually no reason to question any of that, because it usually comes out sounding the way it's supposed to, and
Yeah.
and we don't really have to get involved as a band in that. Occasionally there have been like, yeah, but I don't like this. Can't we like just do one long scream here instead of all these words and stuff? So of course, occasionally the band will have input and kind of suggest changes, but most of the time it's whatever whoever writes the song kind of dictates what the lyrics are going to be and how they're going to be placed over the music and so on.
That's really cool, man. And like I said, I wait for those certain accents on the vocals here and there, much like I wait for a snare or a kick. So you've got great taste in where you're placing them. Just to touch on Jens one more, his earlier stuff reminds me of Hetfield. Like I can hear a Hetfield thing, and then it just seems like he moved away from that and really found his guttural voice. And
Yeah,
listening to that progression throughout the albums is really cool to hear that arc and him sort of find his pocket. You know.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And another thing that I think a lot of people miss is that on the first album, I think Frederick sang on almost half the songs on the first album,
Oh,
and
really?
and they sound a little similar. So it's not necessarily the easiest thing to make out who's singing what. But
Ah,
but they would
interesting.
actually, and early on before Morton joined them, when Jens was still playing guitar, they would actually be doing double duty. So they would be two songs with Frederick singing, and then it would be like one or two or three songs with Jens singing, and they would
Wow.
kind of go back and forth. But Frederick never liked it. He just did it because someone had to do it.
I
So
can't imagine playing and singing that stuff. That's ridiculous.
yeah, and of course over time the music got more and more involved and stuff. So I completely understand Jens's, how he wanted to kind of just choose the one thing. Like it was either guitar or vocals for him, and I think he just felt that vocals were more where he wanted to be. So
And man, like he happens to have one of the greatest metal voices that's ever been.
I think so. I think he has a really cool voice, and like you
He
said, I don't
does,
I don't
man.
grow tired of it. It's not a lot
No.
of bands I get really annoyed after a while, after a song or two.
Like I said, dude, I'm not a metal guy, but I can listen to Dillinger a lot, like early Dillinger. I can listen to them a
Yeah,
lot. The vocal style works for me. You guys, I can listen to all day, every day, and a jazz song can come on straight after, and it doesn't bother me. It's quite funny though. Like my wife is not that interchangeable, so when Meshuggah comes on at home on a Sunday morning at like 9 in the morning, it doesn't phase me. But for her, it's like her world is
yeah,
ending.
it ruined their day. Yeah,
She
no, I
does
get
appreciate
that.
you guys though.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, man. I just suppose I just wanted to end on just asking plans for Meshuggah for recent anything that you're happy to talk about. You guys just quite happy getting on the tour cycles and just enjoying the fruits of your labor of the last 30 years. Like you guys are in such a great place in your career with your audience now, and they're committed and they show up and you guys sell well. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely been a long road. We were never it was never anything like this.
Mm,
So it's been kind of a steady, incline over the 30 years.
mm.
Um, but we're super happy with where we are at this point, for sure. And I don't think we could have ever imagined, the 30-year-old, or the 30-year younger versions of ourselves could never have really seen us like be headlining festivals and stuff, with the particularity of the music that it still is, because it's still a, even though, I mean, at this point in time has also helped us because more and more a wider, array of music and styles within metal is more and more accepted. So I
Yeah,
think we just kind of more and more fit into, you know whatever is going on, and it's not something that is too far off or too weird these days, or anything like that. So we're definitely happy that we kind of stuck it out and just kept doing it, because it was many years that we really never, we might have been touring a lot, but we never really saw any money from it. So
yeah.
so it was hard to make a living off of it.
So can I ask, did you do anything to supplement when you were sort of in those hard years? Did you do any work that would supplement your
Yeah, we
life
we
or?
all kind of did. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did up until, I would say, like mid, like 2000. I think a lot of things changed with Obscen.
Oh,
Uh,
yes. Okay, that makes
but
sense. Yeah.
that really kind of took us up a little bit. And from that point on, we really didn't have to rely on, supplementing incomes and stuff.
What does Thomas Haake do when he needs to supplement? What were you doing?
I mean, I was, if we're talking like late 90s to early 2000 there, I was working in a drum store here in Stockholm. So
Oh,
that was
cool.
one
Okay.
thing. Um, I used to work as a carpenter, but that was way back. That was like up until like 95, I think. But it got more and more scary because I hurt myself really bad a few times, and
Oh,
Frederick cut off his finger straight off on the knuckle in 91, and I had a terrible accident in 91 too.
right.
Um, and so that stayed with me for the rest of the years I worked as a carpenter. And I was really close another time to actually sew my whole hand off, and that was like, okay, that's it now. We got to stop this. The music is more important than me
Yeah.
making a little bit of bucks.
Yeah.
It definitely, that's the reason why I kind of stopped with that. And we all just wanted to do this anyway, so that we were always like Johnson to just be able to do this, full on, and for a living, and we're fortunate enough to have gotten there. So
Well, thank God you guys persevered, man. I mean, like I say, we're just so lucky I'm lucky just to be at a great age to enjoy you guys over the last 30 years, man. It's been a real treat, eh? And back to wrap up what we said earlier. I mean, you guys are doing now what those bands did for you guys. You're helping new bands form new sounds that wouldn't have been found otherwise. I mean,
yeah.
the great examples of that, you look at bands like Polyphia, for example, where they've obviously taken attributes, but they're doing their whole thing. I mean, their own thing where they're bringing in elements of hip hop and stuff like that. And you never know where genre is going to influence and the way it's going to like cross fuse and sort of design new sounds. But either way, it's a good result no matter what comes out.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, we're fortunate enough to be one of those bands that we were the bands that we looked up to back in the day before Metallica got big.
Mm,
'94 with Metallica when they were playing clubs and stuff, but they were a huge inspiration and influence for us back then.
for
And
sure.
hopefully, and I think it's obvious at this point that at least for some, maybe not as wide a amount of musicians out there, but for a certain crowd, we definitely seem to kind of be doing that for them. So
I would actually argue that your mark on metal is just as significant as Metallica's mark on metal at the time. 100%, man. Like I just hear inspiration everywhere with you guys, and it's awesome.
well, I I'm not sure about that, but if you say so, I'm going to take your words. I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to use it as
Yeah,
battery.
just take my word. Yeah, you are. I can actually tell that you're very humble. Like you don't really like to sit on any of the praise, which is great as well. But can I just wrap up with asking, have you got any plans with any new material or anything? Are you just sort of cruising or?
No, not yet. We're still just kind of I know that Dick, our bass player, he played something for me here the other day that was a start of something. I don't know if it's a whole track. I think it's just a part of a track so far. So he started, a little bit. But I don't think for me, I'm not in that modus yet.
Yeah.
I and with each album now over the last like few albums, we do tend to tour longer for each album, and we've always been the kind of people that we need to have completely time off, like nothing at all in the works in the plans for us to be able to kind of calm down and get into a writing mode. We were never the band that's writing riffs and songs while we're on tour and stuff like that. It was always like designated time. Okay, now we decide that we're going to write one more album, and we're going to start now,
Yeah.
and it's going to take a year or 2 years, whatever, how long it's going to take. We're not really in a hurry to get going on the next album, even though, I mean, at this point, it's already, it's 2 years now, 2.5 years. And normally previous albums, that was maybe the extent of what we would tour for any particular album before starting to write. But I think there was a 6-year span from Colossus to, no, hold on, that was only a 4-year span. Colossus was 4 years to Violent Sleep or Reason, and then you had 6 years Violent Sleep or Reason to Immutable, and now we'll see if we're gonna be able to keep that another 6 years again, or if it's going to be longer. I don't think it's going to be shorter though.
Yeah. It sounds like you guys just enjoying the fruits of your labor, and you can keep just. I mean, you guys could just keep touring for the next 6 to 10 years easily without new material, and everyone's happy, bro.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of material at this point, and it's so much that we never touched, and there's so many songs that we never ever played past recording it.
Wow.
Which is
that weird?
It is a little weird. Sometimes you listen back to albums and you're like, holy shit, I forgot this song. I forgot that it even existed. And it's a cool song. And
if you needed to, you could just relearn it all. Like you could access those files in here.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if I could learn it for an album, I should be able to relearn it, but
is there anything that you can't play that you've recorded in the past from the early days?
Yeah, there's plenty of the early stuff that especially Chaosphere.
Yeah,
and that again ties back to the little a bit of lack of control that I have on my right foot now, because that's heavily single footwork.
Gotcha.
And for sure, some of the things you can change a lot of it out with doing the hits on the double bass, but a lot of it is also like, it's crucial. It's supposed to have that hi-hat constantly stomping, and the single kick work. And for me, it's just we've tried to play some of that stuff, but that's really become difficult for me over time with my right foot to kind of have a good feel and control for some of those songs that we used to play, like New Millennium Cyanide Christ, or The Mouth Licking What You've Bled and stuff like that. And it's also another thing, because we started depending heavily on click tracks and started using click tracks too. That was another thing. We brought in the triggers and click tracks to play Bleed, because when we would play Bleed early on, it would be easier for me to say go. My body would want to play it at 120 BPMs rather than 115.
Yeah, right? 115.
But then it's impossible to play it on guitar. They would just cramp up. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So it was kind of crucial that I maintained.
Oh, it's so funny you say that, because I can play it as well, and I struggle playing it at 115 as opposed to 120 or 125. It's not much of a difference, but I want to play it faster as well.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more control and effort for me to play it at 115, which is annoying.
Exactly. Yeah,
hell of a workout.
So that is one of those aspects, and that's also your body wants to play it, and with the control issues I have on my right foot, it's that even more than previous. It kind of wants to dictate, like your body wants to go either up to here or down to here.
Yeah.
And usually that you have to make the songs come out and the sound the way they're supposed to sound. They have to be a certain tempo. I mean, you could adjust it maybe a little bit, a couple of BPM.
No, you're right. The tempos are so important, man.
Yeah, it really is. So, yeah, that's another aspect of it that and I don't think I will ever be comfortable completely to playing to a click track. For sure, at this point, I've played to a click track since I guess 2008 or nine or something like that. And
For all of your songs?
yeah, yeah, it started with just Bleed and Catch 33.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
it's, we would play those like weird things. We would have to have something counting. Um, um, Another thing that had to be paced out the right way. So
And are we just talking about a specific click, or do you have vocal cues in there as well?
no, not
Or are we
really the
just talking
vocal
about
cues.
time?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like that's
Gotcha,
pretty
gotcha,
much
gotcha. Yeah.
what's going on for most of it. But at this point, over time, that also became a more crucial aspect of it. That we have lights that are programmed that also play with the same from the same project to the same click or to the same time.
Yes,
So
yes, yes, yes,
it
yes.
becomes
That's your cousin, eh?
no, he's not doing it anymore. Uh,
Oh, okay.
he did it up until like 2010, I think,
Oh, okay,
but he
right
was doing it by hand. He was always like just hand hammering because
on.
he wasn't really he didn't really know how to program lights like that. So Edvard Hansson that we have that does it for us nowadays uh, is also like all these people that we have around us are also crucial to the growth of us over the last few albums and how we were able to kind of up the show and make the lights even more bonkers and shit. So
Fuck, man, your guys' presence on stage with the panels, like it is such a fuck. It's like watching Pink Floyd, man.
yeah, and
Like it's
that's
just such
yeah,
a visual spectacle.
and that's not us. I mean, that's him, and kind
Wow,
of like I
cool.
want to do this. Okay, let's get it done. Like, how much is it going to cost us?
You got to be happy with that, man. It looks
Oh yeah,
so good.
it's very important, and of course his work is what is very visual and visible to the crowd. But everyone that we have, as far as the crew that we tour with, have been with us for a long time, and
Great.
we really kind of depend on this gang of people because they know intimately exactly what we're going through, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why, and so on and so forth. And it also over time let us focus more on just what we need to do, which is touring and write music, and
Yeah.
they kind of just take over everything else. And I don't even have to do anything anymore. If I need something done, like I want to try a different track from a previous album that we never had click tracks for or anything, or maybe it wasn't even recorded to a click track, so it's like the tempos are all over the place. We have our front of house guy. He will just come here and he'll like map it out and he'll stretch that song so it's perfect and put it to a click track. And it's like, how do you like that? It's like, yeah, it's perfect.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a testament to where you guys are at, but it's also imperative too, because touring, no matter at what level, is not easy, man. So to have that, to just be able to focus on doing a good job is
Yeah,
great.
it's really crucial. And up until like 10 years ago, Frederick was relied on heavily for anything that was like on stage, like as far as pedals, sounds, all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
it was really kind of wearing on him as well. And I think it has been very nice for all of us to be able to just we just trust these people now, and they know exactly what they're doing way better than we ever could. So it's actually it's very nice and very kind of a secure feel to be going out on the road with them. So that's another aspect that is, I think, crucial to any band. At if you're at this point in your career, you have to have that crew of people that really kind of make it all happen for you, so you can just you know get up and sweat a bit and then go have a beer and have a shower and not think too much about it.
Well, like I say, that's a testament to your guys' career, man, and it's well earned. And I think that's actually quite a good note to wrap up on. I just want to sort of end with how I started, which is just saying thanks to you, man. Thanks for your influence over the years and ongoing influence as well. The thing that you've kept in mind for me and taught me is just feel, man. Like you always can. Whenever I listen to you play, you just kind of bring me back to what's important, and it has to feel good. And for that, I'm grateful.
All right, thank you for saying that, man. I appreciate that.
And thanks for your time too, man. It was really gracious of you,
Oh, it was my pleasure.
and all the best for the health and all the best for the band. And I look forward to seeing you guys again. If you come down to New Zealand, now Jimmy said that if you guys do, he's going to reach out and I can take you out on my friend's boat and we can go fishing and have a beer
Oh,
and all of that.
I love fishing.
Yeah,
Only
cool.
actually did it once down there. Well, not in New Zealand, but in was it New Zealand?
No, it
No, I
was
think
New
it was
Zealand. It was my friend
Australia.
that. Oh,
Oh, really?
my
Was
friend
it New?
Ollie. Do you remember
Oh,
Ollie?
yeah, that's right. It was New Zealand. It was a few of the guys from In Flames, and I think we were playing Soundwave or something. Did Soundwave ever come over there?
I don't think it made it to New Zealand, but my friend was hosting you guys for for a period of time here in New Zealand, Ollie. And I
Oh,
actually
yeah, yeah.
tracked
Oh,
drums
yeah,
for his
that's
album
right.
recently, and he was telling me
Oh,
that
okay.
story. So yeah, he says hi, by the way. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah, it was great fun, man.
Yeah, he said
Two
that.
of the guys, they just got so seasick. My cousin was one of them, and our monitor guys, but they were also drunk, so they were laughing
Oh well, fuck.
and throwing up, and just laughing and throwing up and laughing and throwing up.
Oh
But the
my
rest
god,
of
that
us, we
sounds
were
horrible.
fine. Yeah,
Okay, well if you come back, we'll do it again. Okay.
sounds good, man. Sounds good.
Awesome, dude. All right. Well, thanks, Thomas, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.